Good morning, good evening, good afternoon. This is CMG Talk. This is Catherine Gallagher, and I would like to talk today about forgiveness. Forgiveness. And what is the true meaning of forgiveness? Now, whether you follow any kind of faith-based, spiritual or religious, you will have forgiveness at the core of your faith. And it might even be as an individual person, you have your own thoughts about what forgiveness means. I have expressed that I have a very strong faith. I'm a Christian, and it's coming up for Lent. Tomorrow is Tuesday, Pancake Tuesday. I love pancakes, so I'm in my element. When I was 15, I had my second job. Was it my third job? It was my third job, actually. And I worked in a place called the Pancake Shop. And oh my goodness, I loved that shop. And I learned how to make pancakes, true pancakes. And yes, pancakes, savoury and sweet pancakes. It was the best. It was the best job ever for me. Many people would say, really? Not really. But for me it was. I loved it. Yes. Pancake Tuesday. Yes, indeed. But obviously, Lent has more meaning than pancakes. I know that. Then obviously we have Ash Wednesday. It's symbolic, isn't it? It's all about how we reflect on and experience what it is to do without, or to do something where you are reflecting on doing good or doing without. When you think about your own experiences of forgiveness and what forgiveness means for you, forgiveness is, for me, it is intentional. It's a decision where you intentionally are looking to release anger, resentment, a sense of seeking out, purposefully looking for vengeance, revenge, to cause harm to a group or another person. Even if they don't necessarily deserve it in other people's frame of mind, you are releasing yourself of that, and you are forgiving, letting go. For me, forgiveness is not forgetting. And when I say that to people, they'll often say, well, does that not defeat the purpose? If you're not forgetting, are you still not holding on? And I say, for me, it's different. Forgiveness is letting go of the harmful feelings of hurt, anger, revenge. You're not feeling those feelings anymore. But forgiveness for me is allowing yourself to move forward. Forgetting is negating the journey and the experiences that you've had. How can you forget part of that life journey? It might be less impactful when you forgive. It might not have the same impact. But for me, forgiveness is saying, I am moving forward. You're giving yourself permission to move forward. We talk about 3 different types of forgiveness. Exoneration, forbearance and release. The stages. When we think about what we experience when forgiveness is needed, we have the pain and the hurt. Where we are stuck with, aren't we? We go over. We repeat the experience of what's happened, and we relive, don't we? And we constantly revisit, reflect on. We try to make sense by trying to work out and make sense of what's happened. And then we need to, if we're forgiving, we need to move on. We need to let go of the anger, the resentment. That means that we are saying we are letting go of those feelings. Now, for me, when we let go of the anger, we're no longer hurting ourselves. And we're no longer looking to blame. You see, the stages of forgiveness take very different stages and very different steps. We need to own our feelings. We need to own how we feel. Whether it is we're owning, I feel hurt, I feel revengeful, I feel sad, I feel totally bereft, I feel distraught, I feel rage, I feel numb, I feel confused. Whatever we're feeling, we need to own it. And then we need to look at the impact the feeling has had on us. Because of what's happened, these feelings have led me to then withdraw, feel lonely, feel isolated, feel misunderstood, feel judged. I've lost friends, I've lost family. I've lost my job, I haven't been able to function. Because of what's happened to me and the way I felt, I've lost a sense of direction, a sense of purpose. I've lost me in all of this because I've been so consumed by how I've been feeling. We have to then accept. And acceptance isn't saying it's okay. Acceptance is saying it is what it is. It's happened. I can't change it. I can't change what's happened. Acceptance is part of healing. I know it's happened. I accept that it's happened. I didn't ask for it. I didn't deserve it. I wasn't looking for it. But it has happened. You need to make a conscious decision to forgive. It's intentional. I'm choosing to forgive. Sometimes people will come to me in my clinical practice and they'll tell me that they are choosing to forgive the most unforgivable acts. And they know the person they're choosing to forgive might not be even asking for forgiveness. They might not, in other people's eyes, society's eyes, deserve forgiveness, but they're choosing to forgive because they need to heal, they need to move on, they need to recover. They need not to be stuck with this feeling, the feelings that are keeping them continuously feeling that they're harming themselves with hurt, rage, resentment, revenge. Whatever feelings they're harbouring, they need to move on. Forgiveness is a God-like thing. We will say it's for God to forgive. But when we forgive on earth, it's up to God to decide if we have a belief in God or a higher power. But we forgive because we need to for ourselves. Then we start healing, recovering, repairing from within us. People will often struggle with the thought of being able to recover and to repair and to heal. How can I get better? How can I ever recover from this? Because your life is still there and still has purpose. You are still living. You still have a life. You still need to live your life. People say my life doesn't have purpose after what's happened. It does. You're just choosing not to see it. We live our purposeful life usually when we choose to, or when, or for, or on behalf of I'm living my life because in respect of the person that's no longer here. I'm living my life because I know that's what is expected, or it's what's asked of me. I'm living my life because I value life. I feel life is precious, and because I can't not. If we know someone or know of someone who has fought every single breath to still be alive, then we don't see life as something that we wouldn't fight for. We wouldn't want to live because we see it's precious. That doesn't mean to say that we don't feel compassion for people that struggle in life to live life because of the pain they're feeling. And then we learn. We learn and we grow and we move forward. And forgiveness is like a weight. A weightlessness. It's like lightness. It's, some people will tell me that they feel, sometimes they'll tell me they feel reborn. Sometimes they'll tell me that they feel a sense of peace, calm. Compassion. I don't think we can truly forgive someone unless we feel self-compassion. We truly acknowledge the suffering that we have went through. We acknowledge the suffering that's existed around what's happened. And we understand that it's okay to be happy and to find fulfillment again. And we focus back on ourself, our own needs, and what we need to have that happiness and contentment. And we ask for guidance, for help, for support, whether it's through faith, whether it's with our family, with our friends. We don't need to do it alone. We gain perspective. We take counsel from people that are trusted around us. We might seek counselling. We might trust people around us and take confidence. And we need to be able to be prepared to give it time. For me, forgiveness is not about saying it didn't happen. Forgiveness is acknowledging. It's not forgetting. It's not negating. It's about feeling how it felt. It's not saying it's okay what's happened. It's not condoning it. And it's not about then having to build a relationship, keeping connections. It's not about having to establish anything other than saying that what you're doing is forgiving for you. You do it for you, regardless of how it's received. And you don't have to actually tell the person you're forgiving. Sometimes people say, I'm not telling them I'm forgiving them. I'm like, you don't have to. It's a personal thing, forgiveness. It's not about putting someone else at ease. It's not about giving release to someone else. Some people feel that forgiveness is important to tell the other person. That's a personal choice. I know people that will come to me and say that years later they've been approached by someone and they've said, I forgave you a long time ago. The person's been angry and said, why did you not tell me? And they said, if you wanted to know how I felt, you would have approached me a long time ago. You're only approaching me right now because you're ready to approach me. And I'm only able to tell you right now because you're approaching me in a way we are not demanding. You're letting me know that you're ready to receive. It's not for me to tell you I'm forgiving you. It's for you to approach me when you're ready to seek it. I don't need to give you forgiveness. You need to be ready to receive it because you know what's happened. You're accepting ownership, accountability. Why would you go to someone and tell them to forgive them if they go, I've got nothing to be forgiven for? If you're forgiving someone because you need to do that within you to release and relieve yourself of the pain, the hurt, the rage, whatever's holding you back, whatever's keeping you from being able to move on fully in your life, then forgiveness is a personal thing, is it not? Yes, it's very toxic, I think, to forgive someone if you go to them and they go, I haven't done anything. They're in denial, they throw it back at you, and they're not sorry. Then forgiveness is then something that you then have that taken back, taken away from you, robbed from you. That's why it's important, I think, that forgiveness has to be sought. And if someone's not seeking forgiveness, then why would you approach them with it? It's different if somebody's open to it, wanting to receive it, and you feel it's something that you're ready and you want to give. That's different. But why would you be at a point within yourself looking to give forgiveness within yourself and then offer it and have it thrown back at you? We have no control over how someone receives our feelings. We have no control over how somebody receives our actions or our intentions. And if we choose to give forgiveness, and we choose to tell someone we're forgiving them, and it hasn't been sought, there has to be an expectation that it might be received authentically, it might be received unauthentically, and it might also be disingenuously. You might have people who have very toxic reactions to forgiveness. And that can be exceptionally painful and harmful to the person that's offering forgiveness, especially if there's been very egregious acts. And other people are saying, how could you forgive? And you feel judged, but you're forgiving because you feel it's very caring, very compassionate thing, and you've been caught up in such hurt and pain, but you feel it's the right thing for you to do, and you offer that, and someone then meets you with such disingenuous reactions. So I think it's important to be careful and understand the giving and receiving of forgiveness. The forgetting is different. Forgetting is about the journey. People sometimes refer to it as the scar. I think it's an imprint that we're left on. We all have a journey. We all have our experiences. We all have our learnings. We all understand that we can learn and grow and experience and we have things that happen to us that we don't deserve, that should never have happened to us, but we have no control over. You see, if we recognise and value forgiveness as it is, and how it really does enrich and grow us as human beings, it improves and enhances us and our life when we're able to reach and give that genuinely so, authentically so. It allows us to heal. And sometimes people are just not able to forgive. It's not something they could ever attach to a behaviour or something that happens. We can withhold forgiveness as a way of power, control. And we often won't give forgiveness if we feel that somebody hasn't changed, or we don't believe they'll ever will change. We don't trust. If we focus back on ourselves and we do the forgiveness for us, for what heals us, what helps us to move forward in life, it releases resentment, releases hurt, releases pain, releases anger. But if you hold on to grudges, if you cast things up, if you think that forgiveness will punish someone, if you don't give forgiveness, probably not. Because often we find that if somebody hasn't sought forgiveness, they're probably getting on with their life. They might have a conscience now and again. Sometimes they don't. But if they're not in pain, if they're not struggling, if they're not asking you to forgive them, genuinely so, it's usually because they're compartmentalising, they're moving on in their life. And they don't come to you for forgiveness because they don't want to fear rejection. If we focus our brain on what allows us to move forward, then we can. If we constantly revisit and focus on the things that are hurting us, that are causing us pain, then that's what we get more of. Remember, it's important. If you want to forgive, we need to focus back on ourselves and look at the purpose of and the reason to forgive. It's intentional, it's a decision, and it's about forgiving and releasing the emotions that you're holding on to. And of course, forgiveness is a choice. And sometimes people will say that, I choose not to, and that's what we can choose to do, is choose not to. And I know I've touched on letting go before, but often we forgive to move forward, to let go, and to be able to counter the painful, the hurtful, and not go over and get stuck. And how do we do that? Well, we know if we create distance, if we don't have contact, if we focus back on ourselves, if we stay with the here and now and be mindfully present, if you show yourself compassion, accept how you feel, acknowledge your feelings. And sometimes we will never get what we're looking for. We'll never get accountability and responsibility. Sometimes people will never own their actions. But if we focus back on ourselves, our own care, our own self-care, we're more likely to be able to move forward. How do we know if we've actually forgiven someone? Well, we know, don't we? Because there's no grudge there. We either don't think about them, or we really just, they're not in our mind anymore. Or when somebody talks about them, they might talk, this person and really negative about them and really angry about them, and you just go, I don't think about that anymore. That's just not something I'm prepared to talk about. And they might say, how can you not talk about this person? You might just go, you close it down. And depending on what it is that's happened, if it's a relationship breakup and somebody's cheated on you, or, it's, you've got divorced, or if it's been a really horrific thing, it depends on what it is, what you're forgiving about. But the thing is that if it's not something hugely traumatic, and you've grown, you've moved on, you've focused on you, you've learned from it, you'll often say, I just want the best for them. I don't really want them in my life, or if I have to have them in my life because, for instance, if it's an ex-partner, you're co-parenting, so you don't want anything bad to happen to them because, you're sharing parenting responsibilities, and, after all, you've got children together, but you wouldn't want a relationship with them anymore because of what's happened, but you don't want any bad to happen to them, right? So you want the best for them. You're moved on. You've moved on. There's been forgiveness, and you're not harbouring. If it's something particularly awful, you might just close it down. No, I'm not even thinking about that. I'm not thinking about that person. They're no longer, figuring in my life. I'm not going there. Remembering the things, we determine what's unforgivable. We determine the things that we can't forgive in this world. But ultimately, if you do have a faith, then we might say, well, I might not be able to forgive you, but then it's not up to me. But if you don't believe in anything after this world, you might say, well, I might not forgive you, but you may not really care, or I might forgive you, but, whether you can forgive yourself. Sometimes I have people coming to me and they'll say, the person told me they forgive me, but I can't forgive myself. It can feel quite indulgent to someone if somebody's harmed you and the person's like, I know you've forgiven me, but I can't forgive me. And the person often will say, well, if I can forgive you, you need to be able to forgive you too, because, you did this to me and I'm forgiving you. I don't want you to be indulging you. I want you to learn, to grow and not repeat. And if you can do that, then I know you've learned from it, and then I know you've done something constructive about it. But by telling me you can't forgive yourself and that you're wallowing in this, that doesn't really do anything for me. It's not giving me anything constructive or positive. So I want you to grow from it. I want you to learn from it. I want you to not repeat. So that's what I'm looking for. And any relationship, whether it's a friendship, whether it's family relationships, whether it's intimacy relationship, no relationship can ever really be healthy if you can't forgive and forget. If you harbour, if you hold on to things and cast things up constantly, it makes relationships problematic. It makes relationships problematic. People do that. They count scores. They bring things up all the time. But I thought we'd moved on from that. I thought we'd forgiven that. I thought we'd dealt with that. Yeah, no, but I mean, I can't help it because every time you do something, it just brings this up. That's because you've not forgiven. You said you've forgiven, but you're just holding on to it. No, I have forgiven, it's just haven't forgotten. Yeah, but if you're forgiven, it wouldn't have the same impact and you wouldn't feel the need to cast it up. You might not have forgotten about it, but it's supposed to be in the past. You can filter. You don't have to keep casting it up, right? Because it's still triggering you because you haven't really dealt with it. If you've dealt with it, you don't bring it up. You don't cast it up. And if somebody says that sounds like something that happened 5 years ago, if you've forgiven it, you'll be like, you know what? It's not the same. I've moved on from that. That's in the past. I've healed from that. And that's not something I think about because I don't need to. Because we've learned, we've grown, and we've moved on from that. And people often say, how long is it going to take for you to forget about this and forgive me? Well, as long as it takes. That's the reality. Right? When somebody's hurt, grieving, feels rage, upset, or outrage, it takes time. But one surefire way of being able to move forward and forgive someone, depending on what it is if somebody takes ownership and accountability. You have to feel that you're in a good place. You have to be able to move on and work on you too. And often if you're looking for forgiveness, you might not get it. But if you're giving forgiveness, then you're the one that's looking to give forgiveness and you're not expecting it in return. It's about you, remember. It doesn't require the other person to do anything. Often people expect that if they say to someone, they decide to tell someone they're forgiving them, that they're expecting some big gesture back. Often that doesn't happen. You might get a thanks. Right? People feel that they lose control, lose power if they forgive someone because they're expecting something. And people often then feel that if you forgive them, if they're not necessarily in that emotional maturity part of life, they'll often be like, well, I knew you would forgive me because it wasn't really all me. They're just trying to make what's happened okay. Sometimes we forgive, but we haven't necessarily forgotten what's happened because it's something that's part of our life's journey, but we're not casting it up. Somebody might say, I know you seem different. Yeah, well, because I've moved on from it. I have forgiven you, but I can't forget what's happened because it has happened. It sometimes changes how we are, not because we're holding grudges. It's just maybe we're not feeling quite as trustworthy. That person's not quite as trustworthy to us. We're maybe a bit more guarded. It's not because we haven't forgiven them. It's just we're a bit more cautious. because of what's happened. And we know that when we give forgiveness, it does activate the neural networks and neurons in the brain involved in empathy, theory of mind, regulation of our cognitions. It releases stress. It releases stress as well. It's actually good for our overall well-being when we release a lot of this tension and pressure and stress if we don't hold grudges. So there's lots of benefits to forgiveness. I wonder, as I'm talking about forgiveness, whether any of this resonates with you. And if you want someone to forgive you, what are the steps that we need to do? We need to be remorseful. We need to be genuinely show regret. You have to be able to know what you've done. Where did things actually go wrong? And if you don't know, you need to ask. You need to take accountability and responsibility, certainly for your part. Show that you want to take steps to make it better. Offer to make things better, to repair the relationship. Ask for forgiveness. When we do these things, then we're more likely to have somebody say, okay, well, when we work on this, they're more likely to then, at some point, say, I do forgive you. I haven't, and I won't forget. They might say to you, I've forgotten about it, but the reality is, we don't ever really forget. We don't. We're human. Of course we don't forget. But it goes much, much, much further in the back of our mind. That's really the reality of it. We have to cast our mind back to remember it, because our behaviour changes. If we've truly been forgiven, then we've shown by our actions that we've changed and we're not repeating the same behaviour. It's when we do the sorry, I'm really sorry, and then it's sorry, not sorry, because we're still doing it. That's when forgiveness then seems as if it's fallen on empty soil, because the person just keeps doing the same thing. Have you ever had somebody say to you, sorry, not sorry? Somebody used those words, right? Sorry, not sorry. And it wasn't a child, right? And I said, well, I don't feel it. I'm not feeling it. And they just looked at me and they said, because I don't mean it. And I said, well, obviously you don't mean it because you've told me sorry, not sorry. I said, so obviously I don't accept your apology. And until I hear a contrite apology where you genuinely mean it, then it's off the table. And they were like, what do you mean? I said, it's off the table. But you have to, accept my apology. Because you don't accept my apology, things aren't going to change. And I said, well, things won't change. Because sorry, not sorry. When you mean sorry, not sorry, that doesn't work for me. And they went, oh, I said, because what you did, and what you said and how you behaved was very serious. Because it was exceptionally serious. Sorry, not sorry. I don't think so. Being able to express how you feel and do it in a healthy way and do it constructively, which is what I did. Take a breath. Pause for thought. Paraphrase back what you hear. And actually visualise what you want to have happen. Be consistent with your message. Know your perspective. Express your frustration. Diffuse with humour. I diffuse a lot of the time with humour. And I also make sure that I change or I choose the right environment, the right time, right place, right time, right environment. And often owning how you feel. What you've just said to me makes me feel really sad. It's very disrespectful. You're telling me sorry, not sorry. We're adults. We're supposed to be professionals. We're supposed to be mutually respectful to each other. And we agreed your behaviour and your actions were completely unacceptable. Am I wrong with this? Was that not what we agreed? Did we not agree that we would sit down and that we would have a mutually respectful discussion? Did we not agree that you said that you would give me an apology, that we would start again, that we'd draw a line under this, and now I receive a sorry, not sorry? That makes me feel very hurt and very disrespected. I'm going to step away now. I want you to reflect and think about what's been said. Well, you just have to forget about this. I'm not even asking for your forgiveness. I said, no, I don't, and no, I won't. We'll reconvene once you've given this some pause for thought. Then I remove myself. Empathizing, being compassionate, being caring, being understanding, treating people with respect, the respect you want to receive is really important. Forgiveness is such a powerful, powerful thing. Compassion, forgiveness, emotion, it keeps alive emotion, and it allows you to be able to relieve yourself of hurt and anger, takes away blame. It's such a powerful thing to be able to offer, and it's such an incredible thing to receive. Forgiveness. Just a thought. Just wanted to share that and my thoughts around this. Take good care and thanks for listening to me. This is Catherine Gallagher. This is CMG Talk. Remember to like, share and download any of the episodes that are here. And remember, if there is anything that you would like me to talk about, remember it's always something you can share with me here. stepupcmg@excellen.co.uk. I'm really looking forward to talking with you again. It'll be a completely different subject. I'm really excited about this one too. Thanks so much. Remember, like, share and download so that the channel knows that you're enjoying what you're hearing. And remember also to follow me here so that you don't miss out on any of the episodes that I'm dropping. Thanks again. Take good care and let's talk soon. This is CMG Talk, Catherine Gallagher, your host as always.